time, while we're setting up for the next and the last Ignite presentation, just a few housekeeping items. And no feedback. Better. Okay, so we're going to close out with this session. Following that, there will be lunch up and down, so go check it out. We're going to come back here there will be breakout sessions clearly marked kind of around this building, right, Tim Hayes? Following that, and there was one more housekeeping item that I'm forgetting? Right. So you can check them all out there. And also, thank you, Tim Hayes, for pulling this together. E-Diplomacy truly rocked this.
Okay, 1 second. Let's get this in a viewable state. Oh, my goodness.
P.S. Since we're still on that 1 second, the latest Twitter thread is where happy hour will be later. I encourage you all to plug into that discussion.
Sorry about this. I don't know where my browser window has gone, so let's try it again. So just to introduce myself while I'm doing this, I am Will Law, and I'm from Netvibes, and I'm going to give you a live demo of a dashboard that I've put together to monitor and analyze the current events in Syria. If we can just see that. Okay, there we go. So, so first of all, I'm not an expert on Syria, but I hope you'll still listen to this. I actually work with a lot of companies, a lot in the private sector, but also with different organizations who basically are interested in monitoring their brand, their industry, and their products. And basically what I want to do is share some of the kind of methods and the approach that we take with those situations, and then apply it to a topic that may be more relevant to a lot of the people here, which is what's going on in Syria. So I'm going to start with what I think is kind of really the beginning. And what I'm showing you here is actually all of the sources of content which I am basically going to have added to the dashboard and will monitor and then analyze. And I think there's a lot of hype around kind of the fire hose and pulling in huge amounts of content. And I think that a lot of times it's actually really important to step back, and for a lot of users, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think looking at everything is really important and definitely has its uses. But I think for a lot of users, it's all about personalization, allowing them to bring in the content that's relevant to what they're actually trying to achieve. And I think a lot of times a user who is using this dashboard is probably the best person to decide what they should be monitoring, not some kind of algorithm. So we start by basically allowing users to choose what they want to add. So you can see, that, or maybe see, on the left-hand side, these are basically all of my sources. So there are a lot of Middle Eastern-focused news, obviously, relevant blogs and social network accounts. And then, I think even though I talked about personalization, it is useful to be able to get that search element, get every tweet that mentions Syria, every tweet that mentions Damascus. But I think the key is that is allowing users to kind of distinguish between the two types. So those are our sources. The next step, having defined what those are, and now we know that we have relevant content in the dashboard and not just a bunch of noise, is we can then start to do the analysis. So we do this by looking at 5 pretty key factors: what, how, who, and where. And then we end up with something like this. I think, again, I've already talked about personalization, but I want to talk about it again, and I think it's really important that when you present a user with this visual representation, that they know that they can personalize it and interact with it and make it their own, basically dig into the data so that they can basically make the most of it rather than having something more kind of static that isn't intuitive. So, if we look at something like sentiment, it's not really very surprising that there's a lot of negative sentiment in Syria right now. But by allowing users to drill into the data and visualize it in a different representation, so we can then look at the volume of sentiment, of negative sentiment over time, we see something a little bit more interesting. So what were some of the key insights that I found as a non-expert? So the first one was looking at this chart here, which is basically showing where content was published to. You can see that the volume on Twitter is huge, and certainly in a lot of the situations that I'm monitoring, there's definitely a lot more Twitter content, maybe 2 to 4 times something like Facebook. But I think it really is impressive just how much there is in this case. And it really kind of exemplifies how important, or at least how well used that platform has been in these uprisings in the Middle East over the past year. One of the other things that I found really useful is looking at trending topics. So I found using this basically word cloud, which shows us the most common terms within the data. It's been very easy to see, for example, where the fighting has been over the past few days. You can easily see some of the key towns in there, like Damascus and Homs and Hama. And then we also allow users, obviously, again, to when they've kind of discovered these kind of key topics, to then drill down and actually find out more about that particular topic. So by clicking on it, they can not only view a different visual representation of the data, but also drill down and actually read the content that produced that result as well, which should appear momentarily. So I think the final point that I wanted to make with reference to real time is it's only useful if someone's there to actually see the data changing and see it come in. So having this dashboard, which is real time and is constantly updated, is useful in itself if you're in front of the dashboard. A lot of the time you're not going to be. So there are a few ways you can address that. One that I found really useful is alerts. So being able to set up flexible alerts, which could be triggered by various different criteria, so that you can then react to the data changing. And second of all, and it's certainly come up a few times already, are mobile applications which allow people to view the same data and get the same insights when they're on the go. So that is my final point. I would encourage you to visit the dashboard at syrialive.netvibesbusiness.com. And we also have a demo table outside, so if you'd like to learn more about how we do things, definitely feel free to check it out. Thanks.